Well, thanks guys for coming today. We're excited to have Dr. Gina Weaver talk to us about Facebook in the classroom. And just in case you're interested in some other social media sites, I have a Google Doc I can share with you if you're watching this remotely, and I have a handout here. And this kind of talks about some different ways you can use Pinterest in your courses, or Twitter, or Storybird. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, and Snapchat. So I'm going to hand these out, but today we're going to focus more on Facebook. Sorry. Oh, sorry. And then next week is our final training of the semester, and it's going to be a white Christmas theme. We're going to have some white kind of type refreshments like white chocolate covered pretzels and the white chocolate. Yeah. You won't want to miss that. We're going to talk about some free online tools you can use.
As long as you don't order up snow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, maybe some snow. So without further ado, Dr. Gina Weaver.
Can I just do what?
Oh, let me just, sorry. I meant to read up for a while.
Go down the rabbit hole.
Share screen. Yep. I need to sit in your chair. Thank you.
All right. Okay, well, hello everybody. So yeah, Missy asked me to talk about social media, and she was like, "Can you talk about any of these other ones?" I'm like, "Not really." So I'm on Pinterest personally,
Yeah.
but and then Twitter I go read, but I don't actually have an account. I really need to do that. But yeah, so I'm just talking about my experience with Facebook, which I actually started doing. I started doing this because of hearing Alicia Limke talk about it at a faculty workshop once. She just was mentioning during discussion that she used it and had found it very helpful for getting discussion going in her classes. And so I was like, well, that's an interesting idea, although I don't know, because I'm always skeptic about newfangled things. So, but I decided I would give it a try. 1 year, and so here's sort of the overview reasons for why I think you guys might be interested in using it. In my experience, it encourages out-of-class application. It increases like just a community feeling within the class. Helps students to get to know each other, especially if they're classes that, I mean, if it's one of those classes that's not just all of your majors that already know each other. And I think it also helps students that are a little bit more shy about participating. And then this was unbeknownst to me, but turned out to be a really great platform for when you can't meet with your classes face-to-face. I have only used this in face-to-face classes. I can see the application for online classes, but I just haven't taught an online class since I've been doing this. So, but I think it could definitely work there. But it was great for snow days. So I'll talk more about that later. So that's just kind of the overview. So when Alicia initially said that she was using it, so I was like, wow, you know, there are some drawbacks here that I think are potentially problematic. And so one of those was like, does this invade the student's privacy? And what do you do for students who like don't have a Facebook account or whatever? So here were my answers to that in the way that I have used it in my class. To start with, I ask my class if they want to do this. I have done this in classes where I don't do it in every class. I do it in classes where that are primarily discussion oriented, and I require a discussion question from my students. Now, pre-Facebook, I used to do that on Moodle, and I would use the Moodle forums function, which you guys are familiar with. Yes, it's horrible. And I don't know, have any of you used like tried to make it just like they go and do it and hate it, and
I use it with adult students who tend to do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. and get into it.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Like my students, the good ones, like they did it, but you could there was no enthusiasm for doing it. And I would look at the logs, and nobody had actually read anybody else's, which is one of the things when you make those forums public, that's the hope, is that it could trigger class discussion and stuff, and it really was not functioning to its potential. So I would tell them when I have done this in classes, I say, okay. Do you guys want to do this on Facebook? I've had really good luck with it in the past. If you don't want to do it on Facebook because you don't want to be in the group or whatever, then we can use Moodle forums. And so I have not yet had a class who said no to the Facebook. There are usually a couple of folks who don't have Facebook accounts or aren't eager to link up their Facebook account, but generally everybody's willing to go along with it once they hear that the alternative is Moodle. So now, as far as the privacy concerns, I do not have the students friend me. I never ever ask students I never friend request students because I feel like that would be a boundary crossing thing, and I don't ever do that. I usually do have students that one or two in the class I am friends with, they have friend requested me, whatever. So once they go in the group, they can do this, or I will add Melody McWilliams, our assistant, our admin assistant, or one of our student workers to the group, and then they can add people. Because I use secret groups, which I'll talk about later, and so the thing with secret groups is you have to have somebody already in there and friends with whoever they're inviting to be added. You can't just give them a link and have them sign in. So you do have to have somebody, somebody has to be friends with somebody else to get them in there. But there are ways around, so that I don't ever have to see anything. They don't have to give it to, their information to me. And then once they're in there, regular profile settings apply. So I will be able to see their picture, their profile picture, and then whatever they make available on their profile. If I were to click on that, I could just see what I could see if I were creeping on them on Facebook anyway. So, which I don't do. So regular, profile settings will apply. And then I encourage students who don't want a Facebook account, because some students, have quit for, their own personal reasons, I can't handle being on Facebook because that's all I want to do all day or whatever. They have a little addiction problem. So I tell those students to create a dummy account. It does not have to be their real account. I don't care. I just want them to have a way to get in the group. So I've had Gertrude Stein in classes before, and I've had James Joyce and some other ones, and that's totally fine. So I offer that as an option if they don't want to do this. I do not care how they get in there, just as long as they tell me who they're appearing as, so that I know who to give credit to. So in my experience, when it works, it's great. Whoops, and see if I can zoom in here. So the first class that I did this with was my Contemporary Lit Theory, which is an upper division. This worksheet. Do does that offer me? I can't read that.
It doesn't let you open it.
It's not letting me open.
Well, it lets you copy it. Paste it into this. Will work from that.
It will, yes. Okay. So I did this in my Contemporary Lit Theory class, which is a small class, and it was upper division, it's a 4,000 level class. All the students already pretty much knew each other. We had one new student that year, I think. And so that was my experimental group. And at the end of the class, I just gave this little survey just to find out, what they thought of it. And they knew it was an experiment from the beginning. So I was like, hey, I want to try this thing I heard about at faculty workshop. So this is my attempt at a scientific survey. And forgive the typos. As I was looking at the other day, I was like, oh my goodness, you have to let it proofread this thing before I set it up, or after I set it up. But was it easier to remember to post your discussion question on Facebook than on Moodle? Yes. So half the class said yes, it was much easier because I'm on Facebook anyway, and so, I will remember to do that. And then the other one said it was about the same or a little easier. Was it easier to post your discussion question? So easier, ease of use compared to Moodle. And this one was, not really much of a question. So, because it's just making a Facebook status update. We all know, type in the box and hit enter and you're done. You don't have to click 15, little things on Moodle to get where you're supposed to be going. And they don't have to find any forum. They just click on the group and then post in the group and they're done. Were you more or less likely to read others' questions on Facebook compared to Moodle? So this is getting at that functionality that I feel like is underutilized on Moodle forums, where people aren't actually looking at what other people are doing. And they said yes, all of them, all of them were more likely. Most of them said they were much more likely. I love not having to click open a link to see the questions, and I'm nosy. So because it's right there at the top of the screen when they go in the groups, right? They don't have to click into anything. They can just see, and if they scroll, they can see what multiple people have written there. So they were much more likely, to read other people's questions. And then I wasn't really expecting this when I set this up, but it turned out that lots of good discussion would come out of these discussion questions, and they were not required to respond. So this was totally unrewarded discussion that would happen on Facebook. They said they were, so 87% were more likely to comment on others' questions, which would mean so that they were like at least the possibility. Because I don't think I had maybe had like 2 students ever in the entire time, I had used Moodle forums like comment on somebody else's. So they were way more likely to do that. And did you ever use the Facebook group to ask questions about what's going on in class, like using it for just information purposes? And this was another unexpected benefit. I hadn't really thought about this, but students just started doing it, like asking questions. Hey, what did she say that, what changed about the reading schedule, or how, what was the deal with the paper that we talked about, when are revisions due, that kind of thing. And the nice thing about Facebook is that somebody is pretty much always on there, right? So if somebody asks a question, like they can get a crowdsourced answer very quickly. Unlike if they email me on the weekend and I'm not checking my email all the time, right? So, and also I'm on Facebook a lot too, and I'm much more, it's a natural environment for me as well. So I'm also more likely to see that question if it pops up on my Facebook. And did you like being able to share applicable news stories and so forth with the class? And most of them said yes, it was fun to be able to show stories to people who would get what I was thinking about them. So there I was talking about like just all the stories that you come across in your daily news feed on Facebook. And this again was something that I hadn't really intended to happen, but just found that the students did it. They would bring over stories and memes and just whatever, and it's so easy, again, like ease of use. It's so much easier to share things on Facebook than it is in Moodle. So yeah, so they did like that availability. And how did you find classmates and the professors sharing these stories and such on there? And pretty much everybody said they liked it or didn't care. Nobody said they hated it, because we did have a few members who did that a lot, and so not all students got into it as much as others, and sometimes they would apologize for spamming the group, really eager ones. So did having the ability to post news stories to the Facebook group increase your thinking about how class topics apply to real world issues? And all of them said it made them either a little more aware or much more aware, which is something, of course, as an instructor that I love to see that they're doing. And then this is getting at the snow days, the days we had discussion on Facebook rather than in class. Was this easier than posting in response to forum posts on Moodle? Same idea, different platform. So I had students in that class who had to do this with me in Moodle forums before, like makeup days, and so yeah, they said yes. This is, I can't even believe this is a question. It's so much easier. Like that just went so much more smoothly than it had done in all the times past when I had used Moodle forums to do that. And then yeah, everybody sort of felt positively about that though. And did it feel like an invasion of your private personal space to have a class Facebook group? And somebody said, yes, it was somewhat an invasion, but not too bad. And then the rest of them were like, we don't care. So hopefully that one little somewhat negative person didn't care too much. Did the Facebook group make you feel more or less plugged into the class? More a part of a community in a way? And so, yeah, the majority of them said it definitely felt more that way. And that was a comment that I kept having throughout the class. And you'll see in some of the open-ended question feedback, that was, something that they said. And then I asked them, should I leave the group open or shut it down? Because I was like, I don't know, I've never done this before. What do I do with this group? And so actually, most of them wanted me to leave it open for a while. And we did. I think we had it open for about a year before they all graduated and left. And we kind of closed it down because nobody was using it. So. All right. Okay, so 2 primary benefits I think are ease of use. Like we've talked about, it's just a more natural environment. We all use it anyway. Everybody, they are more comfortable. I'm more comfortable. Just from my perspective, like I said down here, it is 1,000 times easier to share a story on Facebook than it is on Moodle. Because I don't know if you guys have done that before, but you know, like I'll update when I come across a link that applies to like some reading we've been doing or whatever. I click 15 things to add the button, and then but it was very discouraging because like nobody would ever actually read it, and so eventually you stop doing it unless you're one heckler, and then you continue on, not caring if nobody is reading. But yeah, I don't like doing it. I get discouraged. Not watching. So anyway, it's just a more natural environment. Definitely an easier environment. Again, most of them are there anyway to start with, and I'm there anyway. So it's not a hardship for me. And also now, I mean, with all of the looking for my phone, it's over there. Phone, iPad, all your devices, right? Like it's a very easy, as opposed to Moodle, which kind of requires getting to a PC somewhere because it doesn't work well on my iPad. I don't know about for anybody else, but I have trouble with Moodle on there. So, but Facebook I can get to anywhere, and iDevices make it really easy to do that. So, very, very easy to use. And notifications help remind students. So, if students choose to leave those notifications on, they'll start getting a flurry of them when it's like a discussion time, like discussion question posting time, and so it's a good reminder because that was a problem that even my good students had with remembering to do the Moodle forum posts. Was just it's a thing you're supposed to do once a week, but because it's outside of class, like they forget that they're supposed to do it by such and such deadline or whatever. But if you see a bunch of other people suddenly posting in the group, then you're like, oh yeah, I need to go do one of those too. So helpful that way. Newer posts are bumped to the top. That was one of the things that the students commented that they liked, as opposed to the forum posts where you have to scroll. I mean, just Moodle has so many, so many user issues. You just have to scroll through so much of it anyway, and then click on the forum post for that week, unless you have them in a giant thing, in which they're, which case they're totally unorganized and hard to find too. So. Anyway, I just think it's much better for that. Students are way more likely to look at news articles and pop culture references posted there. I don't know if any of you, when you have posted links, have looked at your logs, but I used to do that back when I had more time, and was always disappointed that nobody's going and reading the stuff that I want them to read, and to enrich yourself. Don't you understand how this would be better? But on Facebook, you can do it, and here's why I think that they will read them on Facebook in a group, because it's you're posting the exact same material that you were posting there, but they're on. I mean, think about when we're on Facebook. It's when we have time to sit down and we're just basically wasting time vegging, right? As opposed to when are they going on Moodle?
5 minutes before class.
Usually I think mine are doing it the night before. I have literature students, so they have 50 pages of reading.
Oh, right, yeah.
Think they're usually going the night before, but they're going there on a mission. They're not hanging out on Moodle,
right.
Just killing time, having fun. But on Facebook, they're on there, having fun, looking at their friends' stuff, and then all of a sudden a notification pops up for the group. They go over and go, oh, that story does look interesting, and they read it. And so then, you actually get them to ingest this material that you would like them to have. And so they would look at that stuff if I put it there, as opposed to Moodle. Crowdsourcing a quick question, like I mentioned earlier. And then it was just so much easier for the live discussion days where, I would say, okay, between the hours of 2 and 4, you need to go on and post a discussion question, and then you have to do a 300-word reply to at least 2 other people. And again, we had done the same thing with forum posts, but it was always very stilted and unnatural, and people just kind of went in and did what they had to do and then got out. But on these days, which we didn't, this was just a couple of times during the semester, it wasn't often, but the days that we did it, they would actually get on there and, comment more than they had to, and it was a real discussion. And part of that is because, in Facebook, it's just it goes, again, more quickly. It's a more it's just a better platform for having that kind of talk. I mean, you guys have probably participated in some of those political, comments where you're like, maybe that's just me, where you go back and forth with somebody. But we kind of get some of that kind of stuff going in the classroom.
So it's almost like you used it as a synchronous activity?
Yes, in that case it was. Yeah. And I don't think I was on there that day. Like, I just came back and found it. Like, I just checked in afterward to make sure, that they had done the stuff. But
you could be if you wanted to.
Oh, yeah, you could be if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just didn't have internet. So
Yeah.
I didn't have that ability.
With the ice storms.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, and then the other big benefit is I felt like there was more demonstration of in-depth interaction. So in my non-scientific study, my experience, I would say that students are much more likely to demonstrate synthetic and integrated thinking. I don't know that they're necessarily doing more of it, but they're showing me that they're doing it by doing things like posting news stories and memes. And having those discussions, like spontaneous and unrewarded discussions. So I wasn't forcing them to do this. They were choosing to do it. They were gaining nothing except, the enjoyment of having that discussion with their peers. And then we would take those and reference them in class discussion as well. So it was kind of, there was both the online component, but then that bled over into class so that, we're talking about, news stories that don't necessarily have anything to do with class, but we would be talking about, feminism, and then they're like, yeah, it was like in that thing we were just talking about the other day on the, in the group, and so, it was, again, just tying what we're doing out of class to what we're doing in class. Some students who are a little less outgoing, I think online discussion does provide a nice platform for them because, they can feel a little bit more confident, have time to edit their thinking and their words before they put them out there. So they're more likely to talk, which I require discussion. They have to talk in my class, whether they want to or not. So they're doing that anyway, but I do feel like it helps them because they can show more of the fullness of what they're thinking in the online posting. And then it also just helps them feel more comfortable with the other people because they did feel like they knew each other better because of having this out of class, online discussion as well. And so that community feeling was really fostered, I felt like. And they, like I said, they commented on it in this lit theory class, like throughout the semester, that they really felt very connected and they had lots of in-jokes, and that kind of stuff. And it was also really self-rewarding, I think, for the students who are kind of your nerds, right, who are like really into your topic, of the subject of the class, but they don't really get a lot of reward from that, like with other people in the class necessarily, but the group gives them a good way to connect with that one or two other, people in the class who are really into it. And so they can benefit from that. And I have a quote where a student sort of references that idea. So here are some selected quotes from that survey on that open-ended question. So the mechanics of posting on Facebook is much easier than a forum on my courses. Plus, it is a more personal approach to discussion, which I appreciate. It's difficult to tell who you're responding to on a forum. The accessibility of Facebook compared to my courses made it much easier to feel connected outside of class and participate in online discussions. The Facebook group also allowed me to continually interact with topics raised in class, as I had a platform to post links when I encountered something relevant, or maybe not so relevant, outside of the classroom. I enjoyed seeing others' thoughts and findings without having to dig through the formidable My Courses forum layout. This option gave students the ability to be involved as much as they wanted. It was definitely more cohesive, easier to follow, and more integrated with daily outside of class life. I felt like there was more participation and a greater feeling of togetherness than on my courses. It was really convenient to have a discussion group on a website which I already frequent. I didn't have to click a bajillion things to find where to post or scroll through a menagerie of posts. You can tell these are mine. Yeah. English students, right? Using Facebook simplified the online discussion process more than anything I have experienced in other classes. More than being easier, though, I also felt it provided more fruitful discussion and interaction with classmates. Maybe I should take this opportunity to apologize for my excessive posting. I just find such interesting things online sometimes, and I have this need to share them with people, someone, anyone, but I can't really spam my Facebook feed, and I know no one's really going to read them. At least I always knew that you and Tessica would glance at what I posted. So that was comforting. Maybe rather than a discussion question, you could allow students to get points for posting interesting articles or videos. Whoops, that was not what I wanted. And I just found it to be pretty convenient. If other students don't like it, they can suck it up. Nothing is being lost in regards to discussion. So I'm telling you how it feels. But it made it feel less like class. It being less like class made it feel much more natural and perhaps not quite as serious. I'm not saying it was any less important, but it felt more like a conversation than an assignment. Which, of course, as an instructor, I love that, right? That's what I want. So, yes. So here's what I've found since doing this, and I was trying to figure out how many other classes I've done this in since that first one, and I think the answer is I'm not really sure. At least 3 classes, but I've had some of those classes in multiple sections. So at least 3 other courses where I had a significant discussion component. And so what I have discovered from doing this elsewhere is that you have to require participation in the group if you actually want a group to form. Because I tried last semester, or a couple semesters ago, doing an optional one because my idea was like I didn't really want them to post a discussion question, so I didn't make them join, but I just offered it as like a place where they could do sort of the pop culture, news stories stuff as they were relevant and get extra credit for doing that. And what happened was I think I had 3 students join the group out of 20, and then like nobody wants to post if nobody else is going to see what they've done, and so nobody, like I had 2 students ever who posted anything in it, and we kind of shut the group down and everything. It was a flop. So you do have to require them to at least join the group if you want it to work. I think maybe it could work if you made them join and then just still set it up as an extra credit sort of venue, but I think you have to force them to join in the first place. If you want discussion to happen, you should build that into the syllabus. I mean, I think this is just sort of basic pedagogy. Like, if you want discussion to happen, you have to require it, you have to reward it in some way. So, you know, I do actual, like, you have to speak in class to get your participation points in my class. And the same thing online. Tell them exactly what you want these discussion questions to look like, you know, that they should be open-ended questions. And then if you want to require that they do some sort of reply, be sure that you just delineate what you want that to look like. My go-to is like it needs to be 300 words, more or less, because that's a, you know, can be a couple of paragraphs or a good-sized paragraph time to actually create a substantial thought. And so when I do the, you know, like you have to post a discussion and replies, those are the length of my replies. And then I have done building, like have pre-built into the syllabus extra credit opportunities using the group that would just reward that synthetic thinking. So bring a new story to the group, and then I usually do require not just like a posting, but also like sort of a commentary, again, like 300 words or whatever, like explain how this relates to what we've been doing in class. So, you know, they can't just post, you know, the latest Beyonce article in there. They have to actually show us why that matters. But then, yeah, they can build up points over the semester doing that.
So do you set yourself up as an administrator so you can
Yes.
delete posts if you need to? And that
Yes, and I have never had to do that before. But yeah, if you create the group, you're automatically the administrator.
Right.
And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute and talk about like the secret group thing.
Right.
I do make everybody a moderator, so I guess they could probably delete posts. But yeah, I have never actually had that happen before.
Right, I'm just curious, and you know, I would imagine that maybe not like in a literature class, but I would imagine maybe in some classes, like maybe in political science or something like that, where there's
Things
more
could get
controversy.
heated. Oh,
that-
we have controversy.
Oh, yeah.
Right, right. Well, but I mean, you know,
Yeah,
like,
I have a different set of students, maybe.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
you know, I just wonder about like being able to be like, okay, you can't, no cyberbullying and all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I would lay that out really clearly. I mean, I haven't. Well, I mean, I think that would just fall under my, like, you have to be respectful in class.
Yeah.
But you could certainly put that in your syllabus.
It's easier to bully on Facebook than it is in person.
Yeah.
Don't we see that
Yeah,
every day?
yeah, oh, totally.
In our
Yeah.
feed, yeah.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, it's easier to do when you don't have 30 other eyes looking at you in
Right.
shock and horror for
Yeah,
the thing that you've
exactly.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so and that's, you know, it does require moderation or monitoring, so these are drawbacks. Monitoring, you know, you have to check it, which if you're not on Facebook, you know, this might be a problem for you. For me, like I said, I'm a little bit addicted myself, so this is not a problem. I'm going to be on there anyway, so actually it's much easier for me to like keep up with what's going on in the group than what's on Moodle, because I'm like my students, I only check Moodle like when I have to go grade something, right? Or check on what did I say we're doing in class today. But other than that, like I don't hang out on Moodle. I do hang out on Facebook. So so that for me, that's not a problem. But if you're not on there, then that could be an issue. And some students, I've had issues with them using Facebook Messenger to talk to me instead of email. And so I started including a syllabus statement about appropriate contact, and I will answer their question, like if they're asking me just, like a basic question about class, but then tell them you need to stop, I'm sorry, we can't talk on Messenger, you need to do this through official channels. So, so I do, you might just be aware that that's something they'll try. Because it's easy to contact people right there, right? They can just click on it.
They can see you're online.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing devious. It's just, and then the notifications can be annoying. I usually leave them on for me just so that I get them, but we assume that our students are, more technological savvy than we are, which is not always the case. As I'm sure ever. My colleagues seem to think that all students know.
People who haven't taught anything.
Yeah, this is true. So I tell them, okay, guys, you know that you can control the notifications that you get. So you guys know what I'm talking about with notifications, the little badges and the pings to your phone and all that. Basic gives you a pretty decent amount of control over those, and for groups specifically, how much you want to get from them. Do you want to be notified every single time somebody posts in the group, or do you not want to get anything from the group? What do you want? So I tell them you can turn those off and show them how if they need that. So that's what I have there. And then I use secret groups, and that is because it keeps all the groups private to the group. It will not show up if a student tags another student inside of the group because they want that person's attention. It will not show up in that person's newsfeed. Where if you're in an open group, that would show up in their newsfeed. It would show up on the tattletale ticker over to the side, and I don't want this to impinge on their Facebook Live otherwise. So the secret group just keeps everything inside the group only. It also prevents random people from trying to join your group because if you have it as a closed group or an open group, people can see it and ask to join. Why they would want to join, a lit theory discussion class, I don't know. But anyway, it will keep that from happening. It will and if they're friends, if your friends are in a group, you will often get Facebook will try to get you to join the group or will recommend it to you. So this will keep that from happening. Now the drawback to this is that you do have to actually add them to the Facebook group, which means somebody has to be friends with them, which is what I was talking about at the beginning. So I give them options you can friend another person who's already in the group, because usually I have one person that I can at least put in there, or I can put Melody in and say friend her, and then you can delete her if you want to, or you can friend me and delete me, whatever. I promise I'm not going to go look at your stuff. Before that happens, nobody ever takes me up on that. But yeah, so there's several different ways you can do that. And then I just make all the students moderators to hasten the joining process, because once one of them is in there, then they can add others, and so the more people that are in there, the better. And then remember to disband the group at the end of your class, because otherwise it's like a middle section that gets left open forever, and the students hate that. So unless you agree with them that you love the discussion so much they want to keep it going, they can always take themselves out, but again, not particularly technologically savvy, so they don't realize how to do that always. So yeah, so you can remove them. And one thing, I don't have time. Since I initially taught this, Facebook has changed their, they now have that reply feature. Have you guys noticed that? You can reply, I'm sure you have, reply to individual comments on a thread. That's new since the last time I taught using Facebook, which I think it could really be helpful for those days where you're doing the synchronous, discussions, because that way you can be a lot more specific about, or more clear about who you're replying to in there. But also, it will not notify you of replies. If it's the sub-replies, so, because you know how you get notifications when you post it in a thread, but you will not get those for the replies, so if you're monitoring those, you have to be careful and, open all of that thread to, the sub-threads in order to see that, and students who are posting below that won't necessarily notice that, a sub-thread is going on, so I would just alert them that that's how it works, because, again, they don't always know. So this is how it works. So be sure and check those if they're interested in those discussions. And Facebook does now include a search feature. So that is something that should be vastly improved since the last time I used it, because before you just had to sort of eternally scroll to find anything on there. So that should be an improvement. And so now I was going to show you guys how to create a secret group, just in case some of you, somebody might not know. So what I did is over here in your groups, over there down at the bottom is create a group. And so you want to do a secret group. See, I'll invite you, Ken. Far away, my eyes are really bad. Okay, so I will do that, and you can choose an icon. I do not choose the football. And I think you can add like your own picture and stuff now. I have to say I'm not in like particularly visual person, so I don't really care about that. But you can get really into it and decorate it up and make it look cute and add your description. I, sad to say, don't ever do any of that either. I usually just, post here like welcome to the group, and but it does have like the add sticky file that you can do up there, so you could put your syllabus or your rules for Facebook discussion or something like that at the top if you wanted to.
I think you can use Google Docs too, the log.
Like link to a Google Doc?
On the file, if you click there, is
that
say
optional?
Google
Like to link?
Maybe not.
Dropbox.
Okay, so maybe not.
Dude, I don't know. Do Facebook and Google play nice together?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Maybe you just post the link.
Yeah.
But if you just copy the link, then it will post it in.
Yeah. Oh, it will actually put the
It
document
will actually
in.
put the document.
Yeah, and you can, like I said, you can like sort of sticky that so it's always at the top there and they can find it easily. And I haven't done that in the past, but I think I should because they seem to have a hard time keeping their syllabus and knowing what's in there. So that's, and that's all there is to it. You just go in and create those. So where's our members? So this is where you would add more members and I think click that. And so I would just make her an admin, and then she can add whoever she wants to. And manage group. I think this is there. Everybody in there. Group information, group notification. Okay, I think that's just the admin stuff. Yeah, so there, that's pretty much it. Any questions? Alright, well, that survey link is in there if you have any burning desire to look at that or whatever. And I'm happy to share like my syllabus documents if anybody wants to see like how I've set it up in the class before, whatever. I didn't link to that here. So.
Do you mind if anyone emails you with questions once they get started?
Oh, no. That'll be fine.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, really.
How do you do? You don't grade this?
I do grade it.
How do you
Mm-hmm.
use it? How do you post it?
The discussion question is usually part of their participation grade, and so I keep track of it actually on a piece of paper, and then I also will record that on Moodle. So it's usually a quarter of their overall participation grade for the week. So there'll just be a place where I note, did they do the discussion question, and then they can check that grade on Moodle, and I always note on there, like, you didn't do your discussion question.
You categorize your grades.
Yeah, mine are weighted percentage
weighted
categories, yeah.
Okay, because I've done that a lot before too.
Mhm.
And so then that discussion, participation is both in class and on the Moodle side.
Yeah, it is,
Okay.
Yep.
And so then what you see on the Facebook group, that then comes into the classroom and they transfer them back and forth.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, people will bring up, well, this is like what we were talking about on the Facebook group when we were discussing this article. People will bring that up in class, which then also puts a little pressure to, I think, on the people in class who might not have taken advantage of that discussion, like to go back and reread it, or next time that somebody posts something, like to be more involved. So I think it has a really positive effect.
But we've all been in discussions, and then a day later we think, oh man, I should have said this about that.
Yeah, then you can say it.
And then you can do it here.
Yeah, your great idea. Yeah.
Have you found like a critical mass, like where it just becomes unwieldy to do? Because like with 8 students, obviously that's better. But
Right.
I teach a course of 45.
Yeah, and see, I just don't teach any classes that large.
Okay.
So I have an intro to lit section coming up next semester, and it should have 25 to 30 in there. So maybe I'll try it in there and see what happens.
Would it
I
work?
wonder if you could just do small groups like you would do on Moodle, where you would just put people into groups and have, forums only for those, 8 students or whatever. And so
Yeah.
you could just create 3 small groups, and you're just the moderator for all of them, but that way they're in a smaller group.
Yeah.
You just have to be.
That would just make
You
the
would-
admin a little bit more difficult.
Right.
Admin difficult. Well, and then you would not have the benefit. I mean, you could have the benefit. Well, the pitfall, I guess, of any group project. Whereas if you end up with like 8 not so great
Right.
engaged
Right.
students in there,
Right.
like, and one engaged student, like, it doesn't do anything
Right.
for that student. But
But you would also suffer from some of the really good stuff that comes up might not get shared with everybody
Yeah.
like it needs to
But you
be.
could
And
also,
you would have to
you
bring it
could
into
say,
class then.
hey, group A, you guys were having a really interesting discussion. Could you
Mhm.
sort of tell the class? And so there could be some peer instruction there. And I mean, I think there'd
Yeah.
be some really interesting opportunities in the classroom that might come out of that.
And Pam Bracken is doing this for the first time. She had me help her set up her group. So I know it exists in her aesthetics class, and I think those run a little bit larger.
I think they're about 25.
Oh, they're 25?
I have 25 in
Okay,
mine this
yeah,
semester, and I
alright,
have 30 in
So not
the next
45.
semester.
Yeah.
I just have no frame of reference.
I have a question. I heard a professor tell me that he set up like a professional account just
Mhm.
to interact with his students on
Mhm.
Facebook.
Mhm.
Have you had any issues with just using your personal account for this?
I haven't, but my personal account is pretty locked down, so all they can see is my profile picture and
Yeah.
whatever I have public, which is not a lot. So
And you're not friending them. That's right.
right, I have students that I am friends with that have asked to friend me, but I wouldn't friend like just new students without knowing them well and that kind of stuff. So.
That racy stuff you posted.
I have had to have a discussion before about something that was posted, yes, for wedding pictures. So.
Oh.
Um,
Really? I
yeah.
thought they were great pictures. How's
Thank
that?
you. Thanks. Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you so much. And how many in here have a Twitter account that they use? One? Only one person? 2? Twitter?
I don't use it. Yeah, I have.
I use it
Well,
It's plain use.
I know. I have one and I really never use it. But if you want to use it in your courses, here are a couple of ideas. Have you thought about having your students follow like a social issue via hashtag? And then they can report on it in class. You can also use it if you know your students are on there. You can use the Twitter polling that they have now. And then you can also use it to remind them of important dates in the course. And then how many of you use Pinterest? I feel like Pinterest is more female focused. But I mean, I know guys that use it, and yeah, it's becoming more and more just everyone. But anybody use Pinterest in here? So the boards that you create, I've heard of courses that will take historical field trips, and they'll have students pin certain things on the boards from blogs and articles and websites and images. And they can also do peer critiques through the boards, and they can make it a repository for resources. And they can also do reading lists on some of the boards on there. So there are just some other ideas. Storybird is another one that's fabulous. It's a free site where they actually go in and collaborate on making a story, and sort of they do like a writing project together, and so it kind of promotes media literacy. I don't know, have you used that at all, Gina? Storybird?
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of new to me too. But it's completely free for students and educators. So I used it once in sort of a webinar type deal, and so anyway, it was really fun and really engaging, so you just might keep that in the back of your mind for group projects. And then there's Snapchat. Okay, I am not on Snapchat, but I hear that like the younger generation of students, they're all into Snapchat, you know, probably not the adult students so much, but the younger ones. So I just have some facts on that, and sort of like, 77% of college students use it, 71% are under age 35, 45% are 18 to 24. So at the last OLC conference I attended, they were just saying that this is just a great way to bring in those younger students into your courses and really use it.
Since they're not permanent, I wonder how you can really assess that, or
Yeah.
you'd have to be really creative about it.
Yeah, and
Click.
they have
Yeah.
the whole, what are they called on here? The leaked chats? Is that what they're
Leaked
called? Leaked
snaps.
snaps, okay. And so you have that whole issue, which I think if you're using any social media site, you're going to have that whole issue of sort of inappropriate posts or snaps and things like that. So
On Facebook, you can delete them. You can't really delete somebody else's Snapchat.
No.
yeah. So, and so some people are using it as reminders or alerts or course announcements or tips of the week or even feedback for just particular students. So, anyway, I just want to give you guys some ideas. But I love Facebook. Personally, I'm just a Facebook person. I'm not really on Twitter or any of these other sites, so I think Facebook is fabulous, especially with the adult students. Would you say most of your students are the adult students, or are they more the younger?
No, mine are
typical college age?
traditional. Yeah.
Traditional, okay. Well, that's great that they're using it, because I was afraid that generation
Had already.
Yeah.
I know that's what everybody says, but in my experience, most of the students are still
Yeah.
still have an account or still on there.
Yeah.
It may not be cool to talk about it. I don't know.
I think they might use
My wife
others
also.
more, but I
Yeah.
think they still use
Yeah.
Facebook. Yeah.
Okay, well, our prize today is a Charge Hub 7-port USB Universal Charging Station. And I hope everybody's signed in. Do we have the number of the winner?
Yes, we do. It's number 6, Anthony Roden.
Nice.
Yay!
Thank you.
Yeah. So enjoy that. And I hope you guys will come next week for the free online tools and the goodies. So, thanks for coming.
Thanks.